Hi, everyone. Welcome to the English Today journey. I'm really excited to see you here. Before we start, don't forget to subscribe so you can get daily tips that will help you improve your English, step by step. Hello, my wonderful friend. Welcome back to the place where we do more than just study English. Here, we grow as people while learning this amazing language. I'm really happy that you're spending time with me today because we're going to talk about something very interesting. Something that can completely change the way you learn and even the way you live your life. The topic for today is metacognition. Now, I know that metacognition sounds like a big, complicated word. Maybe you've never heard it before, and it might feel a little confusing. But don't worry at all. By the end of this lesson, you'll not only know exactly what it means, but you'll also understand how it can help you in learning English, making better decisions, and even improving your personal life. Let's start with the basics. So, what is metacognition? In simple words, it means thinking about your thinking. That's it. Yes, it really is that simple. Imagine that you could step outside of your mind and watch your own thoughts like they're a movie. You can see what you're thinking, how you're thinking, and why you're thinking that way. This is exactly what metacognition is. You're not only doing something, you're noticing how and why you do it. Let me give you an example. Imagine you are studying English vocabulary. One way to learn is just to read the words over and over. But if you don't pay attention to how your brain remembers things best, the words might disappear from your memory quickly. Now, let's try something different. Stop for a moment and ask yourself a question. Do I remember words better when I write them down, or when I say them out loud? Or maybe you remember them better when you use flashcards, or when you put them into sentences. Asking yourself these questions is exactly what metacognition is. You're not just learning the words, you're learning how to learn the words. You're training your mind to understand itself. Why is this so important? Well, most of us live life on autopilot. We repeat the same actions every day. We make the same mistakes again and again, and sometimes we don't even know why. But when you start using metacognition, something amazing happens. You begin to notice your patterns, your habits, and the way your mind works. And once you see these patterns, you can choose to change them. You can try new ways to learn or to solve problems. You can react less automatically and respond more thoughtfully. Metacognition is like having a superpower for your mind. It helps you become smarter about learning, smarter about making decisions, and even smarter about handling life's challenges. Imagine studying English not just for the words and grammar, but learning how your brain learns best. Imagine making choices in life because you understand your thinking, not just because you are reacting without thinking. That's the power of metacognition. So, as we continue our English journey together, remember this. Don't just do things, think about how you do them. Watch your thoughts, notice your habits, and ask yourself questions. The more you practice thinking about your thinking, the stronger your mind becomes. You'll find that learning English, making decisions, and even growing as a person can become much easier and more exciting. Welcome to a journey where you don't just learn English. You learn, how to grow, and how to understand yourself better. And the best part is, it all starts with one simple idea: thinking about your thinking. Metacognition gives you something very special, a little pause between what happens to you and how you react. That pause may seem small, but it is powerful. In that moment, you can ask yourself important questions like, why am I feeling this way? Is this belief I have really true? Could there be another way to see this situation? Just asking these questions can start to change the way you think, step by step. This is especially useful when you are learning English. Think about those times when you wanted to speak, but felt shy or nervous. Maybe you got stuck, couldn't find the right words, or worried about making mistakes. Metacognition helps you notice exactly what is happening in those moments. It helps you reflect, understand yourself, and then try a different approach. It reminds you that you are not just learning English, you are learning how you learn and how your mind works. Today, we are going to explore this idea more deeply. We will see what metacognition really means, how it appears in daily life, and simple ways to practice it. By the end of this lesson, you will understand how it can make you a more confident learner, a better thinker, and a stronger person overall. Before we go further, let's look more closely at the word itself. Metacognition. Understanding the roots of a word can help us understand the word itself. In this case, knowing the parts makes the meaning much clearer. The word metacognition has two parts, meta and cognition. Let's start with cognition. This word comes from Latin. The Latin word cognosca means to know or to understand. So when we say cognition, we are talking about all the mental processes that help us know, learn, and understand things. Cognition is everything your brain does when it is working. For example, when you solve a problem, that is cognition. When you make a decision, that is cognition. When you learn something new, that is cognition. When you remember something, that is cognition. Even when you understand words or a sentence in English, that is cognition too. In simple words, cognition is the work your brain does to understand and process information. Now, let's look at the first part, meta. Meta means beyond, above, or about. So when we put these two words together, metacognition literally means thinking about your thinking. It's when you step back and look at your own mind, noticing how you are learning, understanding, and reacting. You are observing your own thoughts instead of just letting them happen automatically. When you use metacognition, you can start to notice patterns in your thinking. You can understand why you sometimes feel nervous when speaking English, or why some study methods work better for you than others. You can even use this awareness to change the way you learn and to choose better strategies that help you improve faster. Metacognition is not just about learning English. It is about learning how to learn, how to think more clearly, and how to respond to life in a smarter, calmer way. It gives you the power to pause, reflect, and make choices instead of reacting automatically. The more you practice it, the more confident and thoughtful you become, not only as a learner, but also as a person. So remember, every time you stop and ask yourself how and why you think a certain way, you are using metacognition. You are training your brain to understand itself, and that is one of the most powerful skills you can develop in life. Cognition is simply the way your brain works in the world. It is your mind in action. Everything your brain does when it is thinking, learning, remembering, or understanding. Now, let's look at the first part of the word metacognition, meta. This comes from Greek and means beyond, above, or about. When we combine these two parts, meta and cognition, we get something like beyond thinking or thinking about thinking. In other words, metacognition is the act of stepping back and noticing your own thoughts. I know this may sound a little strange at first. You might be thinking, wait, you want me to think about my thinking? And yes, that is exactly what it is. Metacognition is like taking one step back and observing your own mind. Not with your eyes, of course, but with awareness. Imagine holding up a mirror, not in front of your face, but in front of your mind. You can see what is happening inside your head. Here's a way to picture it. Think about walking through a forest. When you are on the ground, you can only see the trees immediately in front of you. That is like normal thinking. You focus on what is right in front of you, without seeing the bigger picture. Now imagine rising up in a hot air balloon. From above, you can see not just the trees, but the rivers, the paths, where you came from, and where you might go. That view from above is like metacognition. You are not stuck inside your thoughts. You are looking at them from a higher perspective, seeing more clearly what is happening and why. Let me give you a real example from everyday life. Imagine you are reading something in English. Suddenly, you realize that your mind has wandered. You may have read the same sentence 3 times, but you didn't actually understand it. Has this ever happened to you? I know it has happened to me many times. Now, if you just keep reading without noticing what is happening, you won't learn much. But if you pause and say, wait, I'm not focusing. I need to slow down and read this sentence again, that is metacognition in action. You are noticing what your brain is doing and taking control of your learning. Another way to think about it is this. When you are practicing metacognition, You are not simply reacting automatically to what happens in your mind. Instead, you are observing, thinking about your thoughts, and deciding what to do next. You are choosing your response instead of being controlled by habits or distractions. This skill is especially useful when learning English. Sometimes, you might feel nervous about speaking or frustrated because you can't remember a word. With metacognition, you can pause, notice what is happening, and try a new approach. For example, if you forget a word, instead of panicking, you might think, okay, I can describe it in a different way, or I'll try using a simpler word first. That simple pause can make a big difference in confidence and learning. Metacognition also helps outside of English. In life, it allows you to notice your emotions, your patterns of thinking, and your reactions. By observing your mind, you gain control over how you respond. You can ask yourself questions like, why am I feeling this way? Or is there another way to see this situation? This habit of stepping back and thinking about your thinking gradually makes you a stronger, calmer, and more thoughtful person. Think of yourself like a player on a field, but also like the coach of your mind. When you play, you focus on the game, running and taking actions. But as a coach, you step back and watch what's happening. You notice what works, what doesn't, and you think, maybe we need a new strategy. That's exactly what metacognition does. It helps you watch your mind at work, notice patterns, and make better choices. And here's something very important. A good coach doesn't judge harshly. A good coach doesn't say, you're terrible. Instead, the coach observes, reflects, and decides how to improve. You should treat your mind the same way, with curiosity, not judgment. Be kind and patient with yourself, noticing your thoughts without criticizing them. In fact, most of us already practice metacognition without even realizing it. For example, if you read something and ask yourself, did I really understand this? That is metacognition. Or if you think, this is hard for me, maybe I should try a different approach. That is also metacognition. You use it in small daily moments when you are learning, making choices, or even having conversations with others. Another way to describe it is mental self-awareness. Just like emotional intelligence helps you notice and understand your feelings, metacognition helps you notice and understand your thinking. And here's the best part. When you start noticing your thoughts, you gain more control. You can pause, reflect, and decide your next step instead of reacting automatically. Sometimes, metacognition is as simple as asking yourself small but powerful questions. Is this the best way to handle this? Am I being fair to myself right now? Why do I keep telling myself I can't do this? These questions help you step back and guide your mind in a better direction. But let me make something very clear. Metacognition is not the same as overthinking. Many people confuse the two. Overthinking is when your mind goes in circles. You worry endlessly, repeat the same thoughts, and take no action. It feels stressful and exhausting. Metacognition is completely different. It is not about drowning in your thoughts. Instead, it is about observing your thoughts carefully, understanding them, and using that understanding to improve your learning, your decisions, and your life. In other words, metacognition gives you the ability to notice what your mind is doing, pause, and choose your next step. It turns automatic reactions into thoughtful responses. And the more you practice, the stronger this skill becomes. You become more aware of your learning habits, more confident in your decisions, and more thoughtful in your actions. So, next time you feel stuck, nervous, or frustrated, remember, you can be both the player and the coach. You can act in the moment, but also step back and notice what your mind is doing. By practicing metacognition, you gain control, understanding, and the ability to respond wisely. Metacognition is a lot like checking in with yourself. It's like asking, okay, what is happening in my mind right now? How can I guide it in a better direction? It's not about worrying or overthinking. It's about awareness. You notice what's going on inside your mind, and you use that awareness to make better choices. The best part is that metacognition is a skill you can practice. You don't need to be born with it. Just like training your body at the gym, you can train your mind to pause, observe, and guide itself. The more you practice, the more control you will have over your learning, your emotions, and your decisions. You'll find yourself becoming more focused, more intentional, and even more confident in your actions. So next time you feel stuck, maybe you're struggling with a task, trying to learn something new, or just trying to calm your busy mind, try this. Step outside of your thoughts for a moment. Ask yourself, what is going on in my mind right now? That one simple question can be the start of something very powerful. Let's bring everything together. What exactly is metacognition? At its simplest, metacognition means thinking about your thinking. It's a big word, but the idea is simple. Think of your brain as a computer. Metacognition is like special software that lets you watch how the computer works. It is the ability to notice, understand, and guide how you learn, solve problems, and make decisions. When you practice metacognition, you are no longer on autopilot. Instead of acting automatically, you pause and ask questions like, how am I doing this? Is this method helping me? Could I try another way? This awareness puts you in the driver's seat. For example, maybe you realize that you remember new English words better when you read them quietly than when you listen to them. Once you know this, you can make smarter choices about how you study. You are learning not just the words, but how your brain learns best. Metacognition is useful before, during, and after any task. Before you start, you can plan. What steps should I take? What challenges might I face? During the task, you notice. Am I staying focused? Is this method working? After the task, you can reflect. What worked well? What could I do differently next time? This simple habit of thinking about your thinking helps you improve faster and learn more effectively. It also gives you confidence. When you understand how your mind works, you stop feeling helpless or frustrated. You begin to see mistakes as opportunities to learn, not as failures. You gain control over your learning, your emotions, and your actions. You become more thoughtful, more focused, and more intentional in everything you do. Metacognition is not a magic trick. It's a daily habit. And the more you practice it, the stronger your mind becomes. You start noticing patterns, making smarter decisions, and learning more efficiently. It's like having a personal coach inside your brain, guiding you every step of the way. So remember, metacognition is simple. It's thinking about your thinking, noticing your thoughts, and guiding them wisely. Practice it every day, and you'll see big changes not just in learning English, but in the way you think, act, and grow as a person. Metacognition is not just noticing your thoughts, it's also about taking action based on what you notice. Before you start a task, you can plan. What steps should I take? What problems might I face? During the task, you can monitor. Am I making progress? Do I need to adjust my approach? And after the task, you can reflect. What worked well? What could I try differently next time? This simple cycle, plan, monitor, reflect, is really the heart of metacognition. Why does this matter? Because it makes learning much more effective. When you understand your own mind, you can fix mistakes, improve your skills, and grow your confidence. You stop relying only on teachers or instructions and start making smart choices for yourself. Metacognition is not something only special people have. It's not magic. It's a skill, a mindset, and a habit that anyone can develop. Every time you ask yourself questions, reflect on your learning, or experiment with a new method, you are training your brain to become more aware. As you practice, you'll notice the benefits not just in learning English, but also in solving problems, making decisions, and handling life's challenges. Metacognition is like being your own mental coach. Instead of rushing through life without noticing, you step back, watch yourself, and guide yourself toward growth. Once you start practicing metacognition, something amazing happens. Learning becomes easier, more interesting, and much more rewarding. You start to see patterns in your thinking, make better choices, and feel more confident about your abilities. You might wonder, why is metacognition so important? Now that we know it means thinking about your thinking, let's explore why it really matters. You might ask, this sounds interesting, but how does it actually help me in real life? That's a great question. The truth is, metacognition is one of the most powerful tools you can have for learning, making decisions, and personal growth. And it's not just for students or scientists. It's useful for everyone every day. Think about a common situation. Have you ever studied really hard, but at the end of the day, you felt like you didn't remember much? Or maybe you tried a new skill, but you kept making the same mistakes over and over? That happens because most people learn on autopilot. They don't stop to notice how they are learning. Metacognition changes that. When you step back and think about your thinking, you can identify what works for you and what doesn't. You can ask questions like, am I using the best method for learning this? Could I try a different approach? Or, why did I make that mistake? And what can I do differently next time? By doing this, you take control of your learning and your life. You stop being a passive learner and become an active thinker. You gain confidence because you understand yourself better. You can handle challenges more effectively, solve problems more creatively, and make smarter decisions. In short, metacognition is like having a coach in your mind. The more you practice, the stronger your mental muscles become. You'll notice improvement not just in studying or learning a language, but in every part of your life. It's a skill that grows with practice and pays off every day. Have you ever studied hard for a test, but felt like nothing was going into your brain? Maybe you read the same page over and over, but later couldn't remember anything. Or perhaps you've tried learning English by listening to podcasts, reading books, or memorizing vocabulary lists, but your speaking still didn't improve. This is where metacognition can really help. Instead of just pushing harder and harder, metacognition asks you to pause and reflect. Is this actually working for me? Sometimes the answer is no, and that's okay. It's not failure, it's information. It tells you that you might need a different approach. For example, you may realize that you remember new words better when you use them in real conversations or teach them to someone else, rather than just writing them down. When you notice this, you can change your strategy. That is metacognition in action. It saves time, energy, and frustration. Metacognition is also powerful in stressful situations, like giving a presentation or speaking in public. Almost everyone feels nervous before speaking, even in their native language. Nervousness usually comes from thoughts like, what if I make a mistake? Or, what if people laugh at me? If you are not aware of these thoughts, they can control you. But with metacognition, you notice them, pause, and ask, is this thought really true? What's the worst that could actually happen? By doing this, you take back control, calm your mind, and perform better. You speak more confidently and clearly. It doesn't stop there. Metacognition can also help in conflicts and emotional situations. Everyone has disagreements sometimes, maybe with friends, family, or at work. In those moments, it's easy to react too quickly, say something you regret, or shut down completely. Metacognition gives you space. Even just a few seconds can change everything. Instead of reacting automatically, you pause and ask, what am I feeling right now? Why am I feeling this way? How can I respond thoughtfully instead of reacting impulsively? This small pause makes a huge difference. You start to see your thoughts and emotions clearly. You notice patterns in your behavior and can make better decisions. You begin to respond in ways that are calmer, smarter, and more constructive. Metacognition is like having a superpower for your mind. It helps you in learning, in stressful situations, in communication, and in handling conflicts. It turns automatic reactions into thoughtful responses. It helps you stay focused, calm, and in control. The beauty of metacognition is that it is practical and learnable. You don't need special talent to do it. Anyone can practice it. The more you do, the more naturally it becomes part of your thinking. You start noticing your habits, understanding your strengths and weaknesses, and making better choices every day. In short, metacognition is a tool that helps you learn smarter, think clearly, and live intentionally. It gives you control over your mind, your actions, and even your emotions. It's not just for learning English. It's for life. And the more you practice it, the stronger and more confident you become. Sometimes, our own thoughts can become our biggest obstacle. You might catch yourself thinking, I can't do this. I'm not smart enough. I always fail. These thoughts feel real, don't they? But here's the truth. Most of the time, they are not reality. They are just habits, patterns your brain has repeated so many times that you started to believe them. This is where metacognition becomes your superpower. When you notice these thoughts, you can challenge them. You can ask, is this really true? And replace unhelpful thoughts with ones that are more accurate and supportive. Instead of letting these old, negative patterns control you, you can guide your mind toward more positive and useful ways of thinking. Metacognition gives you the ability to pause. Even just a few seconds can make a big difference. When you ask yourself, why am I feeling this? What's the best way to respond? You turn an automatic reaction into a thoughtful response. You choose your words more carefully, act with understanding, and make smarter decisions. This is not just smart thinking, it's also emotional intelligence. Many of us carry old beliefs like, I can't do this, or I'm not good enough. These thoughts are like old songs playing in the background of your mind. If you never stop to notice them, you start to believe them. But metacognition helps you pause and question those thoughts. That one small question, is this really true? Can open the door to a completely new way of thinking and living. Metacognition is important because it helps you learn better, grow faster, become more confident, and take control of your life. Without it, we often repeat the same mistakes again and again. It's not because we are lazy or not smart, but because we are not paying attention to how we think. We don't notice the deeper patterns behind our actions, habits, and reactions. By practicing metacognition, you become aware of your thoughts and behaviors. You notice what works and what doesn't. You can adjust your strategies, make better choices, and stop negative habits before they take over. You are no longer trapped in automatic reactions. You are actively shaping your own thinking. This skill is especially helpful when learning, solving problems, or managing emotions. It helps you stay focused, calm, and effective. It allows you to replace unhelpful thoughts with ones that help you succeed. It is the foundation of self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and personal growth. In short, metacognition is like having a coach inside your mind. The coach doesn't criticize. It observes, reflects, and guides you. With practice, this skill helps you think more clearly, act more wisely, and live more intentionally. It is a tool for learning, for life, and for becoming the best version of yourself. We often move through life without really thinking about what we're doing or why. Most of the time, we just react automatically to things around us. We follow habits, make choices without much thought, and sometimes wonder later why we acted the way we did. That's normal, but it also means we miss out on understanding ourselves and growing as people. This is where metacognition comes in. Metacognition is simply the act of thinking about your own thinking. It is noticing how you think, understanding why you make the choices you do, and learning from the way your mind works. When you start practicing it regularly, something subtle but powerful happens. You begin to notice things about yourself that were hidden before. You become aware of your strengths and weaknesses, the habits that help you and the ones that hold you back, your fears, and even the patterns that shape your emotions. You start to step out of autopilot mode and live life with intention. Instead of just going through the motions, you start growing through each experience. The great thing about metacognition is that it doesn't require anything complicated. You don't need a fancy journal, a special course, or any expensive tools. All it takes is a few quiet minutes, a calm space, and the courage to ask yourself simple but meaningful questions. Questions like, how did I do today? What could I have done differently? Or what was I thinking when I made that choice? Might seem small, but their impact is huge. These questions act like a flashlight, shining a light on your thoughts and actions. When the light is on, you see things more clearly. You begin to understand why you do what you do and how you can improve. Every little insight builds on the last, helping you grow stronger and wiser every day. It's like turning on a light inside your brain. Suddenly, everything becomes clearer. You notice patterns you never saw before. You act with more awareness. You make choices that support the kind of person you want to be. And once you start practicing it, you may wonder how you ever lived without this awareness. Metacognition isn't just something for school or work. It doesn't only matter when you're studying for a test, preparing for an exam, or trying to remember facts. It can touch every part of your life. It helps with small everyday decisions, your habits, your emotions, and even your long-term goals. Once you start noticing your thinking, you realize that it's everywhere. For example, consider something almost everyone struggles with: procrastination. We've all had tasks we need to do, maybe replying to an email, cleaning up, finishing an assignment, or preparing for a test. And yet, sometimes instead of doing them, we scroll on our phones, watch videos, or distract ourselves in other ways. On the surface, it might seem like laziness or poor self-control, but metacognition allows you to see what's really happening. You can ask yourself questions like, why am I avoiding this task? What emotions or thoughts are stopping me? And how could I approach it differently? By examining your own thinking, you start to understand your habits and patterns. You see what triggers procrastination and can figure out practical ways to overcome it. It turns a frustrating behavior into an opportunity for learning and growth. The beauty of metacognition is that it doesn't just solve one problem, it changes how you experience life. It gives you a clearer mind, stronger decision-making, and a deeper understanding of yourself. You begin to notice your emotions, your reactions, and the way you handle challenges. You become more intentional in your choices. Every day, through small reflections and simple questions, you develop a habit of thinking that strengthens your mind and your life. This is why practicing metacognition is so powerful. It doesn't just change how you think, it changes how you live. We all know that feeling. You have one important task to do, but somehow you can't seem to do it. Instead, you scroll through your phone, watch videos, or clean everything except the thing you actually need to do. That feeling of delay and distraction is called procrastination. Most people think procrastination just means laziness. They believe if someone procrastinates, they simply don't want to work. But in reality, procrastination is often deeper than that. It's usually about emotions, fear, or avoidance, rather than a lack of effort. Sometimes we procrastinate because the task feels boring or unpleasant. Other times, we procrastinate because we are afraid we won't do it perfectly, afraid we will fail, or afraid we will be judged. In many cases, procrastination is just perfectionism hiding under another name. We put things off because we want them to be flawless, and if we doubt that we can do it perfectly, we avoid starting entirely. This is where metacognition can make a big difference. By practicing metacognition, you learn to pause and ask yourself why you are avoiding something. You notice the thought behind your action, or in this case, your inaction. You might realize, I'm delaying this because I'm afraid I'll do it wrong. Simply recognizing that thought gives you a choice. You can tell yourself, even if I don't do it perfectly, it's better to do something than nothing at all. That small shift in thinking, that moment of awareness, is metacognition in action. It's not about fixing everything instantly. It's about noticing, understanding, and gently guiding your mind in a better direction. Procrastination isn't the only place where metacognition is useful. Another area where it shines is when your mind won't stop, when you're lying in bed at night and your thoughts keep spinning. Maybe you keep replaying something from the day. Perhaps you said something awkward in a conversation, or maybe you're worried about what someone thinks of you. Suddenly, your brain is racing with what-ifs. What if they misunderstood me? What if I made a mistake? What if I looked foolish? This kind of overthinking is something we've all experienced. It can be exhausting, but it's also a perfect opportunity to practice metacognition. Instead of letting your thoughts spiral out of control, you can pause and ask yourself a simple question. Is this thought helping me? If the answer is no, if it only makes you feel worse and doesn't solve anything, you can choose to let it go. You can remind yourself, I did my best and that is enough. One small moment doesn't define who I am. By noticing your own thinking in this way, you gain distance from it. You stop being trapped by your thoughts. Overthinking doesn't disappear completely, but metacognition allows you to step back, breathe, and respond rather than react. You become more aware of your emotions and habits, and that awareness itself creates a small but meaningful change. This practice is powerful because it applies to almost every area of life. When you pay attention to your thinking, you start to notice patterns. You see why you procrastinate, why you overthink, or why certain habits repeat. You gain the ability to guide your actions instead of just being carried along by them. Over time, these small moments of reflection build up. You learn to act more thoughtfully, make decisions more wisely, and handle emotions with greater calm. Metacognition is like having a little pause button in your mind. Each time you use it, you slow down, understand yourself better, and grow stronger. It's a simple habit, but its effects ripple through everything you do, from finishing tasks to managing stress, from understanding your fears to shaping your daily choices. Sometimes, our thoughts and habits can spiral out of control if we don't notice them early. That's why practicing metacognition, thinking about your thinking, is so powerful. It helps you catch small problems before they grow into bigger ones. Let me share a personal story that shows this in action. A few months ago, I was preparing a podcast episode. I wanted it to be really helpful, inspiring, and easy to follow. I started writing down my ideas, but almost immediately, I began deleting and rewriting them over and over. In my head, I kept saying, this isn't good enough. It doesn't sound right. It's not perfect yet. Hours passed, and I realized I wasn't actually making progress. I wasn't creating anymore. I was stuck in perfectionism. That's when I decided to use metacognition. I paused and asked myself, wait, what am I doing right now? Why am I being so hard on myself? The answer came quickly. I was afraid that people wouldn't like what I was creating, afraid it wouldn't be perfect. Simply recognizing that fear changed everything. Once I said it out loud, I felt lighter. I reminded myself that it's okay to start messy, and it's okay to improve as I go. Progress is always better than perfection. That small shift in thinking was all I needed to start again. I finished the episode, and even though it wasn't 100% perfect, I was proud. Because at the end of the day, moving forward is far more important than getting everything exactly right. Metacognition doesn't just help with overthinking or perfectionism, it's also a huge help when it comes to planning and building consistency. Think about something you've tried to do, a new habit, maybe. Waking up early, going to the gym, studying English for a little bit each day. At first, everything feels exciting. You are motivated, full of energy, telling yourself, this time I'll do it. But then life happens. Maybe you get tired, or something unexpected comes up. You skip one day, then two, and before long, that habit is gone. It's easy to feel frustrated or disappointed in yourself. Some people even give up completely, thinking, I failed. I'll never do this. But metacognition can change that. Instead of blaming yourself, you can pause and ask, why did I stop? What got in my way? Maybe the real reason wasn't laziness. Maybe you were too tired at night, or your plan was too ambitious. Maybe the timing wasn't realistic, or life just threw too many obstacles at once. By noticing the thought behind your actions, you gain clarity. You can adjust your plan instead of giving up. For example, instead of trying to wake up at 5 a.m. right away, you might start at 6:30 a.m. instead. Or, instead of exercising for an hour every day, you start with 15 minutes and gradually build up. Small adjustments make habits more realistic, and awareness of your own thinking helps you stick with them. Metacognition gives you a kind of mental steering wheel. It allows you to slow down, notice what's happening inside your mind, and make better choices. It turns fear, frustration, and perfectionism into opportunities for learning. When you catch yourself overthinking, procrastinating, or struggling with a habit, you can pause and ask, "What am I thinking?
How is this helping me?
What can I do differently?" Each time you do this, you train yourself to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. Over time, these small reflections add up. They help you grow stronger, more aware, and more capable in every area of life, from finishing projects to managing habits, from handling emotions to making wiser choices. In the end, metacognition isn't about being perfect. It's about noticing, understanding, and adjusting. It's about learning from your thoughts and actions so that every small step, no matter how messy, moves you forward. Sometimes, when we struggle to stick with a habit or complete a task, it's easy to blame ourselves. Maybe you didn't have reminders, or maybe you lack support. Maybe life just got busy. The important thing to remember is that the goal isn't to judge yourself. The goal is to understand yourself. Understanding why something didn't work is far more useful than feeling guilty about it. Once you know what stopped you, you can make changes that actually help. Maybe you realize you focus better in the morning than at night, so you adjust your study or work schedule. Maybe your goals are too big, so you break them into smaller, easier steps. One of the most important lessons here is that consistency doesn't mean perfection. Being consistent doesn't mean you'll never miss a day. Life is unpredictable, and you will sometimes fall off track. True consistency is about returning again and again, even after you stumble. That's the real key to building lasting habits. It's not about being flawless. It's about resilience, persistence, and using self-awareness to guide yourself back on track each time. Another powerful way to practice metacognition every day is journaling. Many people think journaling is only for writers or creative types, but in reality, it's for anyone who wants to understand themselves better. Writing down your thoughts, feelings, and experiences allows you to see patterns that you might otherwise miss. Over time, journaling helps you notice what stresses you out and what energizes you. You begin to understand your usual mindset. Do you approach life with mostly positive thoughts, mostly negative thoughts, or a mixture of both? By observing your patterns, you gain insight into your own thinking and behavior. Journaling also helps you ask better questions. After reflecting on your day, you might ask, "What worked well today? What could I do differently tomorrow? Which thoughts helped me feel stronger? And which thoughts brought me down?" Even just a few minutes of journaling a day can make a huge difference. It's like holding up a mirror, not to your face, but to your mind. By seeing what's really happening in your thoughts, you give yourself the opportunity to make small adjustments and guide your thinking in a healthier direction. Metacognition in daily life isn't about being perfect or overanalyzing every single thought. It's not about treating your mind like a laboratory and testing every reaction. Instead, it's about building a simple habit of self-awareness. It's about learning to notice your thoughts, reflect on them, and make conscious choices about how to respond. When you practice it regularly, you start to see yourself more clearly. You understand why you feel certain ways, why certain habits appear, and what patterns influence your decisions. By combining metacognition with simple tools like journaling, you create a foundation for growth. You stop being carried away by fear, procrastination, or negative self-talk. You learn to pause, observe, and adjust. Over time, these small moments of reflection compound. They help you make wiser choices, build better habits, and develop resilience in the face of challenges. You begin to notice that even little shifts in thinking can lead to meaningful progress in your life. Metacognition, in essence, is about giving yourself the awareness and tools to live intentionally. It's about noticing, understanding, and guiding your thoughts so that you can become the kind of person you want to be, one small insight at a time. No matter what challenge you're facing, procrastination, overthinking, perfectionism, or simply trying to plan your day better, you always have a choice. You can pause for a moment, Notice what's happening inside your mind and then decide how to move forward. That small pause creates clarity. It gives you the power to act more intentionally rather than being carried away by habits or emotions. Real growth doesn't happen overnight or through sudden dramatic changes. Instead, it happens gradually day by day as you become a little more aware of your thoughts and a little more mindful in your actions. Each moment of reflection adds up, and over time, it changes how you think, act, and respond to life. Now, let's go a little deeper and explore the two main parts of metacognition. Don't worry, it's not complicated. Once you understand these two parts, you'll realize that you're already using them in different ways, even if you didn't have a word for them before. The first part is called metacognitive knowledge, and the second is metacognitive regulation. These might sound technical, but the ideas behind them are simple and practical. Metacognitive knowledge is about what you know about your own thinking. It's the part of metacognition that involves awareness. It means noticing and understanding things like how you learn best, what challenges you usually face, and which strategies actually help you succeed. For example, maybe you've discovered that you learn better when you say things out loud instead of just reading silently. Or perhaps you've noticed that when you're tired or stressed, it's harder to concentrate and remember information. Being aware of these patterns, your strengths, weaknesses, habits, and tendencies, is metacognitive knowledge. It's also about understanding the nature of different tasks. Writing an essay is not the same as preparing for a speaking test, and memorizing vocabulary isn't the same as learning a math formula. Each task requires different strategies, and metacognitive knowledge helps you recognize what approach will work best in each situation. Once you have that awareness, you can move to the second part, metacognitive regulation. This is about using your knowledge to guide your thinking and actions. It's the practical side of metacognition. For example, if you know that studying in the evening makes you sleepy and unfocused, metacognitive regulation would mean changing your schedule and studying in the morning instead. Or if you notice that reading silently doesn't help you remember information, you might choose to explain the material out loud, summarize it in your own words, or write notes to reinforce learning. It's about planning, monitoring, and adjusting your actions based on what you know about yourself. You set goals, check your progress, and make changes when needed. Together, metacognitive knowledge and regulation form a powerful combination. Knowledge gives you awareness of your thinking and habits, while regulation helps you take control and make choices that improve your learning, productivity, and daily life. You're not just reacting automatically to whatever comes your way. Instead, you're noticing patterns, reflecting on them, and guiding your actions with intention. This is how procrastination gets handled, how overthinking slows down, and how habits become more consistent. By using these two parts of metacognition, you start living with purpose instead of on autopilot. You notice your thoughts, understand your mind, and make decisions that help you grow. Even though the terms might sound technical, the process is natural and practical. Every time you stop and ask yourself, "What am I thinking? What works for me? How can I adjust?" You're using metacognition. Over time, these small steps add up. You become more aware, more resilient, and more effective in everything you do. It's not magic, but it feels like it because each insight makes your mind clearer and your actions stronger. Let's continue with an example to make metacognition really simple. Imagine you are trying to learn 20 new English words. Some people try to memorize the words by repeating them over and over. But that doesn't always work very well. You might remember a few words temporarily, but they quickly fade from memory. What works much better is connecting the words to real-life examples or using them in full sentences. This is exactly what metacognitive knowledge is about. It's about understanding your own mind and knowing the strategies that help you learn best. A person with strong metacognitive knowledge would stop and ask themselves, "What's the best way for me to remember these words?" They might decide to group the words into categories like food, travel, or work. Grouping them makes it easier to remember. Or they might decide to write each word in a sentence so they can see how it works in real conversation. These small choices come from understanding yourself, knowing how your memory works, what helps you learn, and what doesn't. That awareness is the first part of metacognition, knowing yourself and how your thinking works. The second part is metacognitive regulation, which is about managing your thinking and putting your knowledge into action. If metacognitive knowledge is knowing how you think, then metacognitive regulation is actively guiding your thoughts and learning process.
It's the more hands-on side of metacognition.
It includes planning how to approach a task, monitoring yourself while you work, checking if your strategies are working, and adjusting when something isn't effective. In short, it's being in control of your mental process instead of letting it run on autopilot. Let's go back to our vocabulary example. You already know from experience that writing words in full sentences helps you remember better. That's metacognitive knowledge. But knowing it is only the first step. The next step is using that knowledge to guide your learning. This is metacognitive regulation. For instance, you might make a plan. I'll write 3 sentences for each new word. Then, as you start, you notice something. Wait, I'm just copying sentences without really thinking. This isn't helping me learn. That awareness prompts you to adjust your approach. I'll slow down and make my own sentences instead. This active decision-making, monitoring, and adjustment is metacognitive regulation in action. You are no longer passively learning. You are guiding yourself intentionally. Metacognitive regulation is also about problem-solving and staying on track. While working on any task, you check in with yourself. Am I doing this in a way that works best for me? If not, you make small changes. You notice distractions, fatigue, or moments of confusion and adjust your strategy. You might take a short break to refresh your mind, change your study environment, or try a different method to see what works. Every step involves reflecting on your thinking and making conscious choices to improve it. Together, metacognitive knowledge and regulation form a powerful loop. Knowledge gives you awareness of your thinking, while regulation helps you act on that awareness. You notice how your mind works, plan strategies, monitor your progress, and adjust when necessary. Over time, this combination makes learning easier, helps you make better decisions, and allows you to manage challenges more effectively. You aren't just reacting to your tasks and thoughts, you're actively shaping how you think and how you grow. That's the true power of metacognition, understanding yourself, guiding your mind, and taking control of your learning and life, step by step. Think of metacognition like driving a car. When you're behind the wheel, you don't just let the car move on its own. You steer, adjust the speed, and decide the route. That's exactly how metacognition works in your mind. Metacognitive knowledge is knowing how your mind works. It's noticing your habits, your strengths, your weaknesses, and the ways you learn best. Metacognitive regulation is using that knowledge to guide yourself. It's planning, adjusting, monitoring, and making decisions based on what you know about your thinking. Together, knowledge and regulation make you a stronger learner, a clearer thinker, and a better problem solver in everyday life. To sum it up simply, knowledge is awareness of your thinking, regulation is managing that thinking. First, you notice how your brain works. Then, you use that awareness to plan smarter, make better choices, and grow faster. You're not letting your mind run on autopilot. You're actively choosing the direction, adjusting the speed, and deciding when to take a new route. And the best part? Both metacognitive knowledge and regulation can be learned and strengthened over time. You don't need to be a genius to use them. All you need is curiosity and the willingness to ask yourself simple, thoughtful questions. What works best for me? What doesn't work? What can I try differently next time? The more you practice, the more natural it becomes. Eventually, metacognition isn't an extra step. It becomes part of your everyday thinking. The next time you face a new challenge, sit down to learn something or solve a problem, pause for a moment. Ask yourself what you already know about how you think, then use that knowledge to guide your actions. That small pause, the act of noticing and reflecting, creates real power. It helps you make better choices, solve problems more effectively, and handle challenges with greater confidence. But if metacognition is so powerful, why doesn't everyone use it all the time? The truth is, there are common barriers that make it harder to practice, and often we don't even realize they're there. One of the biggest barriers is autopilot thinking. Most of the time, we just go through the day without pausing to reflect. We wake up, complete tasks, scroll through our phones, talk to people, and react to events almost automatically. Our minds move fast, and we rarely stop to notice our thoughts. In autopilot mode, we aren't aware of why we do what we do. We may procrastinate without understanding why, get frustrated over small problems, or fall into negative thought patterns without noticing. Autopilot thinking doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. It's just the way the brain saves energy. But it does make practicing metacognition more difficult because reflection requires slowing down and observing yourself. Other common barriers include distractions, stress, and self-judgment. When your mind is overwhelmed, it's hard to pause and reflect. When you judge yourself too harshly, you may avoid noticing your thoughts because it feels uncomfortable. And when you're distracted by technology or noise, your awareness naturally decreases. Recognizing these barriers is the first step toward overcoming them. The good news is that metacognition can be practiced even in small, simple ways. Pausing to reflect for a few minutes each day, asking yourself thoughtful questions, journaling, or just noticing what's happening in your mind can all help. The more consistently you do it, the easier it becomes to notice your thinking, regulate your actions, and guide yourself effectively. Even when life gets busy, even when distractions are everywhere, practicing metacognition allows you to step off autopilot, regain control, and take charge of your learning, your habits, and your growth. A big reason people don't practice metacognition regularly is that it's easy to live on autopilot. Most of the time, we move through our day without really noticing our thoughts. We wake up, eat breakfast, check our phones, talk to people, go to work or school, and go to bed, all without pausing to reflect. When life feels busy, taking a moment to think about your own thinking can feel like a luxury. But it's not a luxury, it's essential. Reflection is what prevents us from repeating the same mistakes. It's what allows us to learn, improve, and grow. Another common barrier is fear of being wrong. Some people avoid self-reflection because they're afraid of what they might discover. Asking yourself, what went wrong? Or why did I act that way? Can feel uncomfortable, almost like admitting failure. But here's the important truth. Metacognition is not about blaming yourself. It's about noticing patterns, learning from them, and figuring out better ways to act in the future. Reflection is a tool for growth, not a judgment on who you are. Overthinking is another challenge. Ironically, thinking too much can actually block metacognition. Instead of helping you act or learn, you get stuck analyzing every detail. You spin in circles, imagining endless what-ifs and stressing about every small decision. Metacognition is not about endless analysis or criticizing yourself. It's about clear, purposeful reflection that leads to action. The goal is to notice, understand, and adjust, not to become trapped in your thoughts. Then there's the comfort of habits and routines. Our brains love routine because it's efficient. If you've always studied, worked, or done tasks a certain way, it feels natural to keep doing them that way, even if they're not effective. Metacognition asks you to pause, step back, and question your habits. Sometimes it even asks you to try something new. That can feel uncomfortable at first because the brain doesn't like change. But it's exactly this willingness to question routines that allows growth and improvement. Lack of awareness is another major barrier. Many people have never even heard of metacognition. They've never been taught to think about their thinking, to notice their patterns, or to reflect on their choices. The good news is that once you learn about it, you can start practicing immediately. Even small steps, pausing for a few minutes, asking yourself simple questions, or journaling can make a big difference. Finally, there's self-doubt. Have you ever started learning something new, like a language, a skill, or pursuing a personal goal, and immediately thought, I'm not smart enough, or I'll never get this right. Self-doubt can block reflection before it even starts. It makes you question your ability to think clearly or make good decisions. Metacognition helps here too. By noticing self-doubt as it arises, you can separate it from the facts and take small, manageable steps forward. You learn to act despite doubt rather than being paralyzed by it. So far, we've talked a lot about what metacognition is, why it matters, and how it can help in everyday life. But it's important to remember, even when you understand its value, it's not always easy. There are natural barriers: autopilot thinking, fear of being wrong, overthinking, habits, lack of awareness, and self-doubt that can make reflection challenging. Recognizing these barriers is the first step to overcoming them. Once you see them, you can work around them, develop strategies, and slowly build the habit of noticing and guiding your thinking. This is what makes metacognition not just a concept, but a practical tool you can use every day. One of the biggest barriers to metacognition is self-doubt. Have you ever started learning something new, maybe a language, a skill, or even a personal goal, and thought, "I'm not smart enough for this," or "I'll never get it right"? That inner voice can stop you before you even begin. When you doubt yourself, you stop asking helpful, growth-oriented questions like, "How can I improve?" and instead ask, "What's wrong with me?" These two questions might sound similar, but they take you in very different directions. The first opens a path to learning and growth. The second shuts the door on progress. Closely connected to self-doubt is negative self-talk. This is the inner commentary we often don't even notice. Phrases like, "I always mess things up," or "Why do I even try?" can become automatic. Over time, this type of thinking shapes how we see ourselves and our abilities. If you already believe you'll fail, every mistake becomes proof that you're not good enough. But in reality, mistakes are simply part of learning. They're signals, not verdicts. The way you speak to yourself affects the way you think, and the way you think affects your ability to reflect honestly. Positive, supportive self-talk opens the door to metacognition, while negative self-talk closes it. Another common barrier is fear of failure. This one is tricky because it often hides behind excuses. You might tell yourself, "I'll do it next week," or "I'll try when I'm ready," but deep down it's fear controlling your decisions. Fear of failure keeps you from reflecting because you don't want to face the possibility that you might make a mistake. You avoid trying new approaches, avoid reviewing what went wrong, and avoid thinking about what you could do differently. But here's the truth. Failure isn't the enemy. It's feedback. Every failure is a message that says, "This method didn't work. Try another way." Metacognition is what allows you to take that feedback and use it to improve. It turns mistakes from roadblocks into stepping stones. Barriers can also come from cultural and educational influences. Sometimes, the obstacle isn't inside you. It's in the world around you. Some schools and cultures emphasize memorization, following instructions, and getting the right answer rather than asking questions or reflecting on your own thinking. If you ask too many questions, you might be seen as difficult. If you share your reflections, you might feel judged. Over time, this teaches people that self-reflection is unnecessary or even wrong. It discourages curiosity and the habit of thinking about how you think. When these influences are combined with self-doubt, negative self-talk, and fear of failure, metacognition can feel almost impossible to practice. You may feel blocked, unsure, or afraid to examine your thoughts honestly. But understanding these barriers is the first step toward overcoming them. Once you recognize what's holding you back, you can start taking small, deliberate steps to break through. For example, you can replace negative self-talk with supportive questions, treat mistakes as feedback instead of judgment, and create a safe space for reflection, even if your school, culture, or workplace doesn't actively encourage it. The key is to remember that metacognition is a skill, not a natural talent. Everyone faces barriers at first. Everyone struggles with self-doubt, fear, or habits that make reflection difficult. The difference is awareness. By noticing these obstacles and understanding how they operate, you can slowly practice metacognition even in the face of difficulty. Each small step, pausing to reflect, asking better questions, looking at mistakes as learning opportunities, helps you build the habit of guiding your thinking. Over time, reflection becomes easier, more natural, and more powerful, even when the world around you doesn't encourage it. Metacognition is about the opposite of autopilot. It's about slowing down, noticing your thoughts, and choosing how to respond, rather than reacting automatically. Yet, one of the biggest barriers is simply moving through life on autopilot. Many of us wake up, study, work, talk to people, and go through our day without ever asking, is this working for me? Or, how could I do this better? Reflection takes a conscious pause. In a busy world, it can feel like we don't have time, but without that pause, it's easy to repeat the same mistakes again and again. Taking even a few minutes to step back and observe your thoughts can make a huge difference. Ironically, another barrier is overthinking. It might sound strange, thinking too much can actually stop you from thinking clearly. When you analyze every tiny detail or get stuck imagining endless what-if scenarios, you can feel overwhelmed and paralyzed. True metacognition is not endless analysis. It's focused reflection that helps you make clear decisions and take action. The goal is not to think more, it's to think more effectively. Then there's the challenge of comfort zones and habits. Our brains naturally love routine. If you've always studied, worked, or solved problems in a certain way, it feels easier to keep doing it that way, even if it's not working well. Metacognition asks you to pause and ask, is this the best way for me? Trying something new can feel uncomfortable, but discomfort often signals growth. Stepping out of a habit or routine opens the door to improvement and new possibilities. Even after recognizing these barriers, autopilot, overthinking, fear, negative self-talk, habits, change is possible. The most important step is believing that you can change. Many people avoid reflection because they think, I can't do this, or I'll never be consistent. That mindset is the biggest obstacle of all. But metacognition is a skill you can develop step by step, and the first step is simply starting small. Here's how to practice it in daily life without feeling overwhelmed. Daily reflection. Take a few minutes at the end of each day to ask yourself questions like, what went well today? Or, what could I have done differently? Even 5 minutes is enough to start noticing patterns in your thoughts and actions. Journaling. Writing down your thoughts, feelings, and experiences helps make your thinking visible. You'll start noticing habits, strengths, weaknesses, and triggers that were invisible before. You don't need to write a lot. Just a few sentences per day can have a big impact. Ask metacognitive questions. During tasks, pause and ask, am I approaching this the best way? Or is there another way I could try this? This keeps you aware and actively in control of your learning or work. Self-checklists. Before starting a task, list your goals and strategies. During the task, check in with yourself. Am I following my plan? Afterward, review. What worked? What didn't? Checklists make reflection structured and manageable. Teach others. Explaining concepts, skills, or strategies to someone else forces you to reflect on your own thinking. Teaching becomes a mirror that shows you how well you understand yourself and the process. Small experiments. Try a new method or habit and observe what happens. Metacognition is about testing ideas, noticing results, and adjusting. Progress matters more than perfection. The key is to keep these steps simple, consistent, and realistic. Metacognition doesn't mean overanalyzing every decision or making huge changes overnight. It's about gradually building awareness, pausing, reflecting, and adjusting. Over time, these small practices turn into habits that shape your learning, decision-making, and personal growth. Every moment of reflection is a step toward clearer thinking, better choices, and a life lived more intentionally rather than automatically. Metacognition is not just a concept, it's a practical skill you can develop and the more you practice, the better you get. You don't need a teacher, a textbook, or any fancy tools. All you really need is curiosity, a few minutes of your time, and a willingness to look closely at your own thinking and learning. Practicing metacognition is about noticing how you approach tasks, how you react to challenges, and how you can adjust to improve. The best part is, it can start with very simple steps that become natural habits over time. One of the easiest ways to start is with daily pauses for reflection. Just take a few minutes each day to ask yourself questions like, what went well today? What didn't work as I expected? And what can I try differently tomorrow? These small check-ins may seem minor, but over time, they build awareness and make reflection a natural part of your day. You don't need to overthink it. Even jotting down a few sentences or thinking quietly for 5 minutes works. Next, practice asking metacognitive questions before, during, and after a task. Before starting, ask, what is my goal? How will I approach this? While you're working, pause occasionally and ask, is this strategy working, or do I need to adjust? After finishing, reflect, what did I learn? What could I do better next time? These questions help you stay aware and in control of your thinking rather than just going through the motions. Another powerful method is keeping a learning journal. Writing down your thoughts, strategies, and results makes your thinking visible. Record how you felt, what strategies you tried, and what outcomes you noticed. Over time, your journal becomes a map of your growth, showing patterns you might not have seen otherwise. This kind of record is invaluable for understanding yourself and planning better strategies for the future. Teaching or explaining to someone else is also a strong tool for metacognition. When you try to explain an idea or process, you quickly notice what you understand clearly and where your thinking is still confused. Teaching forces you to reflect on your own knowledge, organize it, and communicate it clearly. Even explaining to a friend, family member, or study partner can be enough to sharpen your thinking. You can also build feedback loops. Ask for feedback from a teacher, mentor, or friend, and then reflect on it. Do I agree with this feedback? What can I apply? Combining external feedback with self-reflection strengthens your metacognitive skills because it gives you both internal and external perspectives on your thinking. Another practical strategy is using if-then plans to handle repeated challenges. For example, if you notice that you often get distracted while studying, create a simple plan. If I get distracted, then I will set a timer for 20 minutes and focus only on this task. Or, if you notice procrastination, try, if I feel like delaying, then I will start with just 5 minutes of work. These small, structured responses train your mind to respond deliberately rather than react automatically. All of these practices, daily reflection, asking questions, journaling, teaching, seeking feedback, and using if-then plans are small, actionable ways to train your mind to think about thinking. The key is consistency, not perfection. Start with just 1 or 2 strategies and gradually add more as you feel comfortable. Over time, reflection and self-awareness become habits, making metacognition a natural part of your daily life. This is how small, deliberate efforts lead to clearer thinking, smarter decisions, and steady personal growth. Metacognition isn't just about noticing your thoughts, it's about turning reflection into action. One practical way to do this is by using if-then plans. For example, if you notice that you often get distracted while studying, you might decide, if I feel distracted, then I will set a timer for 20 minutes and put my phone away. Small strategies like this create a bridge between thinking and doing, so reflection doesn't stay only in your mind but leads to real changes. To make this process even stronger, it helps to organize reflection around 3 simple phases: before, during, and after a task. Before starting, plan ahead. Ask yourself, what is my goal, and how will I approach this? During the task, practice self-monitoring. Notice if your strategy is working, pay attention to how you feel, and adjust if needed. After finishing, reflect. What went well? What didn't work? And what can I do differently next time? Framing reflection in this way gives you a simple, repeatable routine you can use anytime for any task. Growth starts when we stop running on autopilot and start living with awareness. This can become your motto, a small reminder that awareness comes before improvement. The questions you ask don't change the past, but they prepare you for a better future. Even pausing for just a minute before a task, checking in with yourself mid-task, or reflecting for 5 minutes at the end of the day can start turning metacognitive awareness into a habit. To make practicing metacognition even easier, you can use a few simple tools. Journaling. Write 1 or 2 sentences at the end of your day about what worked and what didn't. This creates a visible record of your thoughts and progress. Mental check-ins. Pause during tasks to ask yourself, is this strategy working, or am I staying focused? These short moments of reflection keep you aware and in control. Better questions. Replace self-criticism with curiosity. Instead of asking, why am I so bad at this? Ask, what can I try differently next time? Self-monitoring. Notice your thoughts and feelings while doing a task. This helps you recognize patterns and triggers in real time. Planning ahead. Take 1 minute before starting any task to decide your approach and goals. This primes your mind for intentional action. Remember, you are not just a learner. You are your own guide. The better you understand your thinking, the more power you have to shape your future. Reflection and action work together. Thinking about how you learn or work allows you to make smarter choices, solve problems more effectively, and grow steadily over time. And that's where metacognition goes beyond learning. It doesn't just help you study or work, it helps you navigate life. By observing your thoughts, noticing habits, and making small adjustments, you become more intentional in your decisions, calmer in your reactions, and more confident in your ability to handle challenges. Metacognition is a skill you can practice anywhere, every day. You don't need hours or special tools. A few minutes of reflection, asking simple questions, journaling, or adjusting your approach is enough to start seeing change. Over time, these small actions become habits, your awareness deepens, and you naturally guide yourself toward growth, clarity, and better choices.